Who's your pick in an Oklahoma City Dallas Mavericks series?
Oklahoma City. I'm not betting against them. Like we're going to get to them in a moment. Well, we'll get to a team that played them, but I was there watching them on Wednesday night and watching them put a 43-16 run on Dallas or on Phoenix in the third quarter was remarkable. And now Chet Holmgren's coming back Friday. Okay. Like what the hell? Like who is slowing this team down? Chet Holmgren now has 2.5 months to work his way back into shape before the playoffs to develop chemistry with Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, no, I'm in the Western Conference. I'm not picking against Oklahoma City I'm not picking against Oklahoma City with anybody. No way, no how. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the team that played Oklahoma City last night, the Phoenix Suns. And like I said, that game was ugly. The Suns had a lead at halftime, then got blown away in the third quarter. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander drops like 51 points in 33, 34 minutes. Ridiculous game. Phoenix, they got punched in the mouth and they folded. And really there are no reinforcements coming. They missed out on Butler. There was no deal for Kevin Durant. They do move Yusuf Nurkic, who was predictably buried in Mike Budenholzer's doghouse. They get back Cody Martin and Vasilij Micic, two guys that are kind of, just another guys to me. I don't, like I was in that locker room after the game and I talked to a few of the guys. I talked to Tyus Jones. I talked to Devin Booker. I talked to Mike Budenholzer. And, even them trying to explain how things can turn around, you just don't believe it. Like you hear them saying, we've shown flashes of this early in the season when they went 8-1. We know we've got the talent level. I don't see it. There's still a relatively soft team that just doesn't have the pieces, the connectivity to win at even a mid-level. What do you think of the Suns basically standing pat at this trade deadline?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same thing I imagine they think, which is that this is a huge loser moment because they tried everything they could not to end up in this position. I mean, how hard were they working the last couple weeks to trade anything, anyone? First, it was please someone take Bradley Beal, please take Bradley Beal, please take Bradley Beal, until 4 days ago when it shifted to please take Kevin Durant, please take Kevin Durant, except Kevin didn't want to go the primary place they had for Kevin to go. And that's a whole
Well,
other
let me
issue.
weigh in on that. Like that. So yeah, there was a point where I really believed Kevin Durant was going to Golden State. They were going hard after him. They wanted that reunion. And it became clear to me, I think it was Monday when I first started to hear this, that Kevin didn't want to go back to Golden State. And as I was hearing this, the destination I think that Kevin Durant would have been cool with was Houston. They obviously, they're a contender and he fits what they need, like a fourth quarter scorer who can go get a bucket in clutch situations. Plus, Kevin likes Ime Udoka, like everybody in the league. Played with him briefly
From
in
Texas.
Brooklyn. Yeah. So
he went to Texas, obviously from DC, but went to Texas.
Yeah. He wanted to go to Houston. Houston, though, had no interest in that deal. Not just mainly because it doesn't line up with their timeline. I wrote this over the week, but unless you were calling them up about Devin Booker, they don't want to talk about anybody. Like that's just kind of the only guy, besides Luka, who they didn't really have a shot at, that they'd be remotely interested in acquiring. So that's the other part of it. Like the Suns just spent like the last month publicly shopping their key guys. Like I didn't get a chance to talk to Bradley Beal, but Bradley Beal has really just been the guy that they've tried to find a way to dump, like move off of, like just get rid of. Like how does he rally and get it back together down the stretch? Durant's a hooper. He's going to find ways to just play through it. But I don't know. I didn't look at this team and say like, right, they can find a way to get back into that mix. They're not good offensively. They're really bad defensively. They just don't have the pieces to do anything at a high level.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for Devin Booker, not because I don't think playing with KD or even Bradley. I mean, look, Brad Beal gets a little bit of a bad rap. It's because of the contract. Otherwise, people would want Brad Beal on their team. They'd want him for a little bit less money and certainly to be able to have him be a tradable contract. I think there's all kinds of teams in the league that would want Brad Beal. He is also a good camper. He's someone who went through years in Washington, D.C. with a good attitude. He is someone who has had a good attitude when he's been in Phoenix. So I don't think he is inherently a problem. It's just that his contract is such a big problem and prevents you from getting other things and other assets on your team. So if you're Devin Booker, you've been playing with that. And then now Kevin Durant, who obviously is toward the end of his career, as much of a pro as he is someone who does have injury issues. So I just think we're watching one of the great players, sort of the his prime sort of be spent like this is bad for me. I'd like to see Devin Booker on a team that we feel is more competitive, and I just don't think this is a competitive team. The spark is gone. I mean, I think that's what you saw when you were with them. Every time I've seen them play, there just doesn't seem to be a lot of spark in that locker room. And after failing at the trade deadline, as defined by their own front office that was trying to make several huge moves and didn't, I can't imagine that spark is coming back. Do you?
No, and look, Mike Budenholzer is a good coach, but he doesn't strike me as that spark igniting guy. Like I don't think he's going to rally the troops with some kind of speech or kind of injection of enthusiasm. That's just not him. And look, the reality is like they fired Frank Vogel, but Frank Vogel had that team at 13th in defensive efficiency last year. This team is 24th. Yep. This year. They were top 10, back into the top 10 in offensive efficiency. They're 13th, I think, as we record this year. They have taken steps back. And you could certainly argue that the roster is better this year than what it was last year. So, look, but it's not on Budenholzer in the same way it's not on Frank Vogel. Like, this is just a deeply flawed roster that I don't see getting markedly better. Like, they can tout the Cody Martin acquisition and Micic acquisition, but Cody Martin's a non-3-point shooter. Meach is a non-3-point shooter. Like, these are just skies. They're rotation pieces. I don't know. I mean, I know they're in this clustered Western Conference, even though they're sitting there tied for 9th and 10th right now. They're still only 3 games back of the Clippers. Like, you're still within shouting distance. But the team I saw just waved the white flag, minutes into that third quarter. I mean, they just got kicked in the teeth and then did not bounce back. I don't know how that team, has a strong surge in the second half. I just don't see it. Even, look, I was talking to Booker about this Wednesday night because Tyus Jones had brought up how they know they can win because they did it early in the season when they won 8 of the first 9. But even Booker's like, you go back and look at those games, we weren't playing that well. Like, it wasn't like we were resting in the fourth quarter of those games. Like, we were having to make big shots just to win early in the season. So, they recognize that, this is a deeply flawed team that, without any kind of transfusion is just not going to get better. And I don't think that Butler would have made him better either. I don't think flipping Butler for Beal would have made him better. I sure as hell know flipping Butler for Durant wasn't going to make them better.
Nope.
This is a team that's just stuck. And I just think they're in denial about where they are, how they get out of this hole, and if it's even possible to get out of this hole.